Good evening. We are calling the meeting to order.
That's me and that's me.
Welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools regular Board of Education meeting. It is Tuesday, April the 4th, 2023. May we begin with the roll call, please, Charlotte?
Dr. Chang?
Here.
Mr. Goldman?
Here.
Dr. Harris?
Present.
Dr. Kamoff?
Here.
Ms. Nazarella?
Present.
Dr. Steinberg?
Here.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson?
Here.
Student Representative Megan Murphy?
Excused.
Student Representative Caitlin Striffcave?
Here.
Thank you. Caitlin, may you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. We do not have a revision to the agenda order. Now it is time for public communications. This is where we're able to hear from you, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your suggestions. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. We ask when you go to the podium to please share your name and the town that you live in. Please be aware of Charlotte over there, who will hold up a yellow card when you have just 1 minute remaining in your time. And when your time has ended, you'll see a red card, and we ask that you politely take your seat at that time. Now, we have quite a crowd here today, understandably so. And we do have with our policy where we start with agenda items first in terms of public comments from those speaking on agenda items. And I don't think I need to remind those what that is, but I will for the purpose of documentation. Tonight's agenda is on the adoption of the 2023-2024 Board of Education budget, as well as approval of financial report period ending February the 28th, 2023. Now, we do have a list here of several that have signed up to speak, and we're going to go by this list. I will ask, though, for some courtesy in that with all that we have to discuss today, very important conversations, not only do we have our public comments, we have the budget to discuss and to vote on. So I'm going to go by who is on the list for comments. However, if you signed up on the list here and we had the pleasure of hearing your comments already before, if you could politely allow someone else who did not get to sign up to speak. So again, I'm going to go down the list, name those on the list. However, if I call your name and you have already spoken, if there's someone who did not sign up on the list, if you can please respectfully defer and share your time for that person to speak. We thank you so much for all of the communication we have received from our public hearing, from previous Board of Ed meetings, and also the emails. So very much appreciate hearing from you and want to be able to hear from as many as we can tonight. So again, I'm going to go by this list alone for public comments. If your name is called and you have already spoken, please respectfully allow someone else who has not had a chance to speak to share. With that, we have Anita. Again, if you have spoken already, we're going to ask for you to politely share your time for others to speak.
Do you want to hold this? So my name is Anita, and I have brought to the attention of the Board of Education that I found on 42 million of 5 to 10 million discrepancy. I sent an email. I have not received that response. I'm still waiting. Second point is at the last workshop, Claire Nasarala spoke about a 700-person decrease. That's not the important number. The important number is the per student expenditure. So when we look, is my microphone on? Okay. So when we look, in 2013, it was 14,394 per student. That was 148,030,022 for 9,900. As we can see on the graph, we see a decrease, correct, of the enrollment. What we see is a strong increase in the per student expenditure. That's the number that is more important than the number of 700. I see a room filled with people. We have increased in per student expenditure, but we are decreasing in the number of services. That needs to be explained. Point one. Point two, last year, Claire Nasarella, for 100,000, wanted to get a PR firm. Excuse me, Claire Nasarella, how is a PR firm going to help our students learn arithmetic, reading, mathematics? If I know what I know, it came from public education. If I know what I know, it came because our superintendent cared that his students learned and would be able to stand here 30 years later to speak up. And the last thing is the idea of conflict of interest. Lorna
Excuse me,
Thomas
one
Farquharson.
moment. I want to hear what you have to say, but I do, with the remaining of the time that's left, what specifically to the current budget would you like to comment on? Again, we're speaking on agenda items. I recognize you're talking about a wide time frame. Is there anything that pertains to the current 2023-2024 budget that you would like to comment on?
Okay, two things. I don't trust your numbers, and I've given reports on that. Second thing, Lorna Thomas Farquharson, you are employed by the state of Connecticut in the Office of Early Childhood. Your department gives funds to this town. I am asking you to recuse yourself because there is a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Addie.
I'm speaking on the budget. Interim Superintendent Morrow's salary in 2021 stood at $211,113 thereabouts. That is 4 times the household median in West Hartford. Yet he nickels and dimes our students to be reimbursed with $20 for his phone case and $15 for his mouse. But it's quoted in Weehaw News as saying, while respecting the contributions and sacrifices being made by our taxpayers in relation to the budget, our student body is decreasing, our budget is increasing this year by almost $9 million, $10 million of which Andrew Morrow has the discretion to move around as he wishes without the Board of Education knowing. Yet the administration, led right now by Interim Superintendent Morrow, and Dr. Lorna Thomas Farquharson are stripping positions and programs vital to ensure a well-rounded and excellent education for our students, all our students. Every student is equal. Literacy and math scores have been declining since 2017, especially amongst Black students. Art access, which the state says it aims for 60, WHPS scores 39.4 in 2021 and to 2022. We barely hit 44% pre-pandemic. So stop blaming the pandemic for what is your problem. You have a bad budget. Your figures do not add up. Everything is under random supplies and not explained, no records. When you ask for records, you don't get them. You also have members of WHPS creating records to supply under Freedom of Information Act. You cannot create documents. Yet we have money to have registered behavior technicians whose only requirement has to be 18 years old with a high school diploma and 40 hours of instruction. We have enough money to hire them. We have 1 ESOL hire, 1 elementary, 1 secondary. I am Webster Hill. We had 2 ESOL. We speak 30 languages in that school. But you can hire psychologists and behavioral technicians over trained teachers and teachers' assistants. That is what our students need. They need math. They need art. They need languages. They need literacy. They need all of that. And you are not providing it. You are failing our children. You get a big F. And I know I'm 16 years in, and I'll be 24 years in 2031. My eldest got an excellent education. My youngest, I hope to God she gets one too.
Thank you. Our young people are so polite. All right. Next, we have Tony. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate that very much. Jonathan Fish.
Good evening. Jonathan Fish from West Hartford. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak in opposition to the proposed superintendent's budget for 2023 and 2024. I urge the board to reject the budget as currently written and ask them to ask the superintendent to resubmit the budget without the eliminations of the elementary music and Smith STEM positions. The interim superintendent's lack of vision in choosing to eliminate student-facing positions should not be an excuse for the board to do nothing. When I was in the Navy, I was taught to never bring up a problem without also having some sort of thoughtful solution to offer. And as a CPA now, I think I have the knowledge and experience in budgeting to offer 3 reasonable alternatives that could have been considered for consolidations that would not have the detrimental impact on our elementary students that the current proposed cuts would. Number 1, instead of not replacing a retiring elementary music teacher, let's choose to not replace the superintendent position after the previous one has left. If we think that a science teacher can perform the duties of 2 people, then certainly the 2 assistant superintendents could work together to perform the duties of that 1 person. They seem to have done a fine job this year after Tom Moore's absence, and I doubt that a single student has noticed the difference this year. This proposed consolidation would save the district $222,000. How about number 2? We could consolidate the director of the Gifted and Talented program. We could require that the 2 other directors, the elementary and the secondary directors, fulfill those responsibilities of the other one. Again, if we think a $90,000 per year science teacher can do the job of 2 people, then 2 $180,000 directors could certainly work together to fill the other role. This proposed consolidation would save the district $180,000. My third and final offer of an alternative is, I want to give a little context. So the principal of the largest elementary school in this district has 490 students, while the principals of the 2 smallest elementary schools each serve about 280 students. So each of those other two principals are performing about 2/3 of the work of the one from the largest school. Yet they are all making exactly the same salary, or nearly the same salary. Let's consolidate the principals of the 2 smallest schools, and then we could add an assistant principal position for those 2 schools. This would save the district $20,000.
Excuse me, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I call the next person, I want to say that really appreciate the advocacy and how it's visualized with the signs. However, I'm going to ask to please politely not to have the signs raised. We certainly want to hear what you have to say at the podium, but we're going to ask please to keep your signs lowered. We've done this in other situations as well, so just want to be fair with that. But greatly appreciate the artwork that we see. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Nora.
My name is Nora McHugh. I am a lifelong West Hartford resident, a proud Hall High graduate, and a current West Hartford teacher. However, tonight I am here as a parent of a current Charter Oak pre-K student. The implications of the push to downsize to penny pinch will have long-lasting impacts on the children in our district. As a parent, I am deeply concerned that collapsing cohorts across the elementary level will increase class sizes, which means less attention spent on individual students. Many upper elementary classes already have over 20 students. Next year, the elementary enrollment is projected to increase by 20, but we're still eliminating classrooms. The decision to eliminate a substantial number of FTEs looks at the historical needs of the district, not the needs of the students in the classrooms we currently have. Justifying the reduction of FTEs due to decreasing enrollment doesn't consider how the social, emotional, and academic needs of students have ballooned since the pandemic. Teachers are also getting burned out with all the demand. We need more staff to help students in need, not fewer. If we continue to spread resources thin, students will suffer, if they have not already. Cutting FTEs is a major issue of equity. Students who are behind will continue to fall behind. Looking Looking to the future, I'm greatly concerned about what high school classes will look like by the time my son reaches 9th grade. In recent years, the district has increasingly relied on having teachers travel between schools to teach multiple classes simultaneously or to teach at multiple schools to save a few bucks. At present, there are world language classes that have 2 levels of students being taught simultaneously in the same class period, and tech ed classes with 3 entirely different classes being taught at the same time. These are not decisions I support as a taxpayer or a parent. A teacher split between 2 or more buildings or simultaneously teaching multiple levels is automatically less available to their students. How do traveling teachers offer after-school help? How do traveling teachers touch base with struggling students? The answer is they just don't, in a good way, like a normal teacher in one building could. These are intangible costs to our students when we look at more traveling teachers and more multi-level classes. Even more egregious than the increasing time we are paying teachers to travel rather than to teach and work with their students is that there is a math class currently offered where it's taught in one building and streamed in at the other. The teacher is only physically with their students every other week. As parents, are they even aware that this is happening? As a district, we have an obligation to be honest with our parents and students and not create this type of bait and switch situation where we can deny a student a real live-in, live person 50% of the time. I thought our society and this district acknowledged that during the pandemic, there was just no substitute for quality in-person instruction. As a tax-paying citizen, we expect our money to be put to good use. It seems that this board is planning on undermining the education of our children by cramming more and more kids into classes and stretching teachers further and further. What is the outcome of this misguided approach? The outcome is students who are less prepared for their future and teachers who are overly stressed and less able to meet the needs of their students. In a time when teachers are fleeing their profession, this is misguided. Fund our schools.
Thank you. Next, we have Heather.
I already spoke, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lindsay.
I already spoke, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate your patience and respect. Thank you. Ruby.
Good evening. My name is Ruby. I'm a West Hartford resident. I live in 21 Royal Oak Drive. If there's one thing that I've learned this week, it's the importance of remaining vigilant and engaged in local decisions and not take for granted our responsibility as voters in speaking truth to power. I've sent multiple emails to anybody who will listen and have received several responses from members of the Town Council, State Representative Derek Slapp, Kate Farrar, and even our Mayor Sherry Cantor. All have referred me back to you, the Board of Education, and Dr. Morrow, who have been radio silent in response to our opposition of this consolidation that would, in practical terms, gut our STEM curriculum at Smith. You've heard the facts presented here multiple times about our demographics, diverse student body, both culturally and socioeconomically, large population of students living below the poverty line, and our impressive performance on state exams despite these challenges. What I want to do in my 3 minutes is remind you of why you're here. Being a member of the Board of Education is a privilege given to you by us, the residents of West Hartford who voted you into office. It is literally our job as voters to hold you accountable for your actions, speak up when decisions you're making harm our kids, and remind you that you work for us. That said, I would like to remind you of the promise that you made back in 2020 when you voted to adopt a vision for West Hartford Public Schools that emphasized educational equity. And I quote, "We, the members of the West Hartford Public School, dedicate ourselves to the pursuit of equity. Equitable schools are those that value and honor all in our community as unique individuals capable of maximizing their true potential. We'll make a solemn promise to identify and dismantle all elements of systemic racism and historical inequities. We vow to clear paths with a relentless duty to those in traditionally marginalized groups. We pledge to partner with all families in the service of the success of each child. As a Board of Education, we have a statutory duty to implement the state's educational interest, which includes the duty to reduce racial, ethnic, and economic isolation of our students. You went on to identify budget and resource allocation as a way that you would strive to achieve this goal, and went on to state West Hartford Public Schools will strive to allocate resources and funds to meet the needs of all students, while directly targeting interventions and supports that address identified inequities and help maintain school cultures that support our mission to enhance our global community. This proposal represents a contradiction to our equity and anti-racism policy and a broken promise to hundreds of students who rely on you to fulfill this mission. I urge you to do better. If I have a few more minutes, am I out of time? Okay, so she wants me to help read with her. Her name is Sophia, and she lives in West Hartford as well. And she wants to say that STEM education is important to her because it has helped her be more creative at home and elsewhere. Everywhere she goes, she's always noticing, wondering and exploring, as is the Smith motto. And if she had to pick between fun science experiments with Mrs. Zajac or more computer learning, she would always pick science. Kids like her and all of these kids that are here need to learn with their hands, their eyes, their ears, their nose, and that's what we do at Smith. And she urges you to make a different choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alex.
Hi, my name's Alex, and I'm from West Hartford. I'm here to talk about how Miss Zajac's job might get eliminated. If Miss Zajac leaves, then a lot of other things leave, like making pizza, raising salmon eggs, STEAM PM, and most importantly, STEM. And I'm respectfully asking you to vote against this budget cut. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Teresa.
See if I could do this. Good evening. My name is Teresa McEwen, and I am the president of the West Hartford Education Association. That's also known as the Teachers Union. This is my 6th year as president, and as some of you may recognize, it is not a habit of mine to speak to the Board of Ed at your meetings. But I feel, however, I must with this current budget proposal. I have heard too much about scheduling to find staff efficiencies over the last few years. Sorry, I just ran here from another meeting with legislators. We were discussing dual teaching. To me, and I hope you, we understand those are the code words for a cut in programming. To ask teachers to do more with less. As our business is personnel driven, with less personnel, there will be less programming. I believe prior speakers have spoken about programming and the reality of the proposed efficiencies, cuts to the music department. In addition, the Quest department is looking at 2 retirements this year that total 1.3 teachers. To my knowledge, there are no less students being identified to be placed in Quest programming. So how will we do the same district-wide work with less staff? Hypothetically speaking, we will not be pushing in for enrichment. We will have more traveling teachers, which will impact the number of duties we are asking all other teachers to pick up. To me, that is a programming cut. There are real-world impacts and realities to your decisions on this school budget. I do appreciate the complexity of the job that you do, but please remember, your children's learning conditions are my teachers' learning conditions. Okay, they're working conditions. We are in a historic teacher shortage. We are hiring teachers continuously in West Hartford like other urban school districts, not just in the summer to the start at the end of August. I encourage you to look hard at our seniority lists and at our turnover. Please ask yourself, what essential personnel should each school have? Should it have 1 full-time art, music, and physical education teacher? Or should we ask those teachers to cover 1 building and then more? How do we determine caseloads between and within the buildings? When do you split an elementary class? For an elementary grade of 50 students, do we have 2 classes of 25 or 3 classes of 16 to 17? For a high-level high school course...
Excuse me, pardon me, your time has expired.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brooke.
Hi there. My name is Brooke Daly, and I live in West Hartford. I have 2 children. My oldest goes to Sedgwick Middle School. My youngest, his name is Finn, and he goes to Wolcott. I am here today to oppose the budget due to the cut in the music program. My son Finn is in 4th grade and was able to finally choose an instrument. He was very excited. We love our music teacher, Mr. Longo. Finn is disabled. He has Down syndrome and autism, so I didn't know if he'd be able to participate, but Mr. Longo was very supportive. And currently, he is able to give him one-on-one attention. If this budget cut happens, most likely that would not happen. He would only be able to provide group lessons. That would not work for my son. So inadvertently, there would be a whole population of disabled students that would not be able to participate. Finn cannot operate that way. And I think many times people think of music as a nice to have, and it's so much more than that, because for Finn, it's a huge part of his learning. He learns differently, and music provides him with fine motor skills, memory, math skills. All of these things are so important to him, and yes, it's fun, but that's a bonus. So I'm just asking politely to please not approve the budget as it is, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Steve.
Hi there. So because we're discussing, most of us here are discussing...
Pardon,
I'm sorry.
No, you said, if you can just state your name and where you live.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm Steve Chamberlain, 25 Clearview Avenue. We're here from, most of us are here from the Smith STEM School. We're here to discuss the curriculum, specifically the STEM curriculum. I'd like to quickly read to you a statement from the Connecticut Department of Education's position statement on comprehensive STEM education for all students K through 12. It says that the board believes that the comprehensive science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education is key to preparing students to be innovative problem solvers and critical thinkers. The board believes that every student deserves comprehensive STEM education that integrates the knowledge, skills, and practices of individual STEM disciplines. It goes on to say that STEM education requires adequate time, adequate resources, and adequate instruction that includes engaging opportunities. It says that STEM instructions must provide students with the time to investigate, question, and solve complex problems. And the board believes that the Connecticut schools must increase efforts to provide a comprehensive STEM education to all students. The same document moves on to say that the school district's responsibilities are to provide opportunity for teachers across disciplines to collaborate and plan and development. They're also there to provide a safe and effective STEM learning environment, and that they are there to provide meaningful professional development resources and meaningful instructional materials and technologies to support that STEM education. It is my belief that your decision to possibly cut specifically out of the STEM specific faculty at the school would undermine completely exactly what I just read to you from the State of Connecticut Board of Education's mission on STEM and the importance of STEM to have all the resources they can possibly get. I feel that there's opportunity here for you guys folks tonight to find different places in your budget to make the cuts needed while recognizing that a STEM school needs to have all of the possible STEM resources it can. And there's been plenty of people that have sat up here last meeting and talked about all the data that we've compiled and given to you in many documents, which showing what kind of advantages these STEM education programs do for our students in highly disadvantaged neighborhood. We need to get you guys on board with us, on our team, and recognize the importance of the STEM faculty at Smith STEM. Thank you.
Thank you. That is everyone who signed up on the list. However, there were 3 individuals who were very kind to share their time. So I'm going to allow 3 speakers who have not spoken today or spoken at public comments or spoken public hearing. If you would like to share your thoughts, please, just 3. Again, thank you so much to those individuals who shared their time. Please, yes, go to the podium, share your name and your town of residence, please. And then we'll have 2 more, if there are, following this individual.
Hi, my name is Dean Batchelder. I live in West Hartford. I'm here to talk about the music position specifically, but obviously the budget in general. My son came to Wolcott late. He previously attended a magnet school. The transition was concerning, yet the reality was very different. Wolcott became a home. He is excited every day to go to school. Music is an integral part of that love. It is impossible to overstate how deeply impacted my son has been by Mr. Luongo. Instrumental music is indeed instrumental to a Wolcott student's musical education. Music enriches other fields of study. Music includes mathematics, language, geography. It would be hard, in fact, to find an academic field which wouldn't be enhanced by the study of music. Plato wrote, "Music is a more potent instrument than any other for education because rhythm and harmony find their way into the inward places of the soul." I have 2 quick anecdotes about this that may help to illustrate what's at stake. First, when my son was contemplating staying in the magnet program or coming to Wolcott, I spoke to the teacher who would be his teacher at the magnet school. He said, "As much as I would love to have him as a student, we just can't provide as many resources and as much enrichment as he will get at Wolcott." Secondly, one of my best friends is a music teacher and Teacher of the Year recipient in a neighboring town. When a position was cut in a similar fashion and music education was made to be spread thinner, it was soul-crushing for both my friend, the teacher, and the students. He tried to continue to provide the best education possible, but it was truly an impossible task. It has left him exhausted and denied the students access to what they loved and what I feel they deserved. Who are we as a community? Will we provide students with the environment that challenges them academically and artistically? Will we provide them an opportunity to continue to feel passionate about coming to school? Music is our ally, and we will do well to keep that in mind. The town meetings at Wolcott happen every Friday afternoon. It's where the Wolcats play, one of the programs which would be crushed by this position elimination. And it's an exciting glimpse into what's possible when you give children a great musical education. The entirety of the student body sings and claps along as the Wolcats play. The Wolcats is the musical group. They cheer as academic achievement is championed. They sing together in joy and celebration. Wolcott has a magnificent blend of cultures, but music is their second language. The music program is a part of the soul of Wolcott. This is an excerpt from a poem my son, Cameron, wrote called "The Truth About Music." Music is for the soul. Yes, music comes in many styles and many cultures, but somehow still, music is the universal language. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. You two, and then that we're going to pause after public communication. Yes, you two young people, I saw both of your hands go up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, pardon. I didn't realize you were coming to the podium. Pardon me.
That's okay.
Please, yes, go ahead. You as well. Yes, go ahead.
I'm so tall I can just sneak in. My name is Jacob Werblow. I live at 27 Howland Road. Appreciate your time, appreciate the opportunity. What can I say that would that others haven't said? In November, I had the opportunity to go to Norway, the country in Europe, and I spent most of the time in prisons. I wasn't incarcerated like someone in the news might be today, but I was visiting to study their model, which is a world-class, it's really the leading model of the justice system. And it was so inspiring to talk to not only people who are incarcerated, but also the staff that worked in the prison. And the quality of life was so good. They really believe that incarceration is the loss of freedom, but everything else in prison is about rehabilitation. But what's interesting is that we use the same words here in Connecticut, but our model is totally different. And one thing I learned from our Norwegian neighbors across the big ocean is that words really matter there. So when we look at the mission statement, when we look at the motto that I just pulled up just now waiting, it says clear paths. This is the motto for West Hartford Public Schools. Clear paths, bright futures, and no limits. So why are we here tonight limiting the education? And I know that you are not paid. This is your service, and I can only imagine the time that you've already put into this. So to ask you to revisit the budget and to go back through it, no one wants that. Of course not. In an ideal situation, you would have the resources that we all feel that we need. So the question is it possible what does it look like to go back and to leverage the mayor and to say, we need more. Like, this is not sufficient. Like, what would need to happen for us to do that as a community? And so that's my request. And I just really think that we have the mottos, we have the vision, we have the mission, we have the words. But what we don't have systemically is we don't have practices that align to that, whether it's our prisons or whether it's our educational system. And I think that tonight we can change that. We can change that and work together to have the budget that we need. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And for our last public comment, I pointed to two young people out there. I'm going to ask if you both would like to come up to share your time. So again, the two young people who I saw your hands pop up, if you would come to the podium, please. And thank you for patiently waiting.
I'm Jack Bowman, and I live in West Hartford. I work with Mrs. Stengel solo in the morning and afternoon, and I know that she works tirelessly. Sometimes her projects take over days, same as Mrs. Zajac. And I know that no one could replace both of them in one job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gigi Guzman, and I am now in 6th grade, but I just graduated from Smith, and I absolutely every year would look forward to those after-school activities that Miss Zajac would prepare for all of us. And I know that I think everyone would agree that those are just so fun, and there are so many choices. And who doesn't love the pizza, of course? And I just think that Ms. Zajac is amazing, and she should stay at Smith.
Thank you. That is all who we have speaking on agenda items, and we're going to pause on public communication at this time. We do have public communication at the end of the meeting as well. Continuing with the agenda, we now will move to non-staff communications and reports where we hear from our student representatives. We'll first begin hearing from Caitlin, speaking on behalf of Hall.
Hi everyone. I don't have too much to report from this past few weeks, but the main things is that we had our Spirit Week this past week. We ended it off on Friday with a pep rally. We had individuals go to All-State for music, and spring sports are moving along. I just came from my track meet earlier today, can you tell? And my friend here is at her own tennis match. But other than that, it's just spring and waiting until spring break in a few days. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. And as you referenced, Megan is at a tennis match at this time, so speaking on her behalf, we'll have Dr. Murrow giving an update on Conard.
Megan only sent a couple of items here. So on Monday, April 3rd, Conard hosted a breakfast where they honored the military child, members of the American Legion, as well as students whose parents are currently serving or have served in the military were the guests at Conard. I believe that Paul spoke at the event as well. And although it is a short week, it's Spirit Week at Conard. Monday was Celebrity Day. Today was Jersey Day. Wednesday is Vacay Sleigh Day. And Thursday is PJ Day. And so Conard is also having a pep rally this week to celebrate the end of winter and the beginning of an exciting spring.
Thank you. Now moving on to unfinished business, where we have the recommendation that the Board of Education review the superintendent's proposed budget in the amount of $189,941,121, make revisions as necessary, and adopt the 2023-2024 Board of Education budget. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Renee. Now we will engage in discussion. So thank you, teammates, for coming to the table here.
As they're setting up, again, to thank all of the team here who have worked this year with you and the board to deliver, a comprehensive budget that's also fiscally responsible. And so I wanted to review again as Liz is getting set up that what I had shared with you last week about the final insurance rates for the state partnership plan have come in below our initial budget estimate. Based on the state guidance, we had loaded into the budget and had estimated with the town an 8% total increase in rates. There's different rates based on single-family retiree coverage. Our average rate increase that we've now received from the state is 7.5%, allowing for the general fund appropriation for health and medical for the 2023-24 budget to be reduced by $138,871, as Liz will begin with.
Sorry, technical difficulty here.
Thank you so much. We will take advantage of this time. Young people who are out there, this is what happens when you plan for things and things don't always happen according to plan. You have to be calm and collected. So we're so appreciative for this time for that. So young people who are out there, question for you. What season are we in right now? Is it fall? Spring. Who likes spring? Raise your hand if you like spring. All right. The weather today was beautiful. Who had a chance to go outside? Yes, adults, you can raise your hands as well. Yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We're going to have more of that weather. There we are. Right.
Terrific. Thank you for your patience as we got that working. What you see here is our standard form that we review each year as we make adjustments to the budget that the superintendent has proposed. So what you see on the screen starts with the adopted budget for the current year that we are in. And you will see that the current year budget is $181,187,000. Based upon what the superintendent proposed and recommended, the proposed budget is $189,941,000, an increase of $8,754,000 or 4.83%. So what we'll do tonight is make amendments and adjustments based on your recommendations. As we vote on each of those, our final figure will change, and you'll be able to see what the new increase and the new percentage increase is, as well as any changes to positions that you make. So as Dr. Morrow mentioned, we did have a reduction in our final health appropriation based upon the final premium rates that we received from the state. So I will add that in. I don't know if you want to vote on each one as you do them, or if you want to wait till the end, but I will leave that to you.
So thank you so much, Liz. So what information we have received, teammates, is that there is available to us additional funding because the funds for the health reserve came in less than what was initially anticipated. So if I'm seeing correctly, the $138,871, that is, I don't want to say extra, but that is funding that we do now have access to. All right. Again, we're in discussion. Do we have thoughts or suggestions? Renee and then Ethan.
I'd like to make a motion to reinstate the STEM specialist position using the savings from the state partnership plan.
Is there a second?
Seconded. Jason.
Thank you, Renee.
Can I
Thank
ask
you,
a question?
Jason, for second discussion. Yes.
So don't we have to approve the health reduction, which I realize is a obvious,
We do. We have to
I
vote
mean,
on each
we're not
of
going to
them.
turn down savings, but
No, and you can do that in whatever order you want. If
Okay.
you want to vote on each one as you go, you can.
So to make sure we check and balance correctly, thank you, Ethan. Yes, let us first vote to accept or account for the additional funding because of the health reduction based on financial premiums. So is there a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Thank you, Renee. Is there a second?
second.
Thank you, Ethan. Discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. All right, recognizing we now have those available funds, returning back to what was initially proposed, I'm going to ask you to please restate your motion.
I move to reinstate the Smith School STEM specialist using the health reduction premium funds.
Thank you. Renee, is there a second?
Seconded.
Jason, thank you, Jason, for the second. Discussion.
The wording is incorrect because there was never a motion to eliminate the STEM position. There was a motion in the budget to combine the science and STEM positions. So there was never any, if I understand correctly, there was never any determination of what position would be eliminated. There was a proposal to combine those two jobs, correct?
That's correct, yes, then taking it from 3 to 2, yes.
So with that, let us recommend to modify the motion. And with that, let teammates, let's work together so we can accurately have the motion reflect what we're striving to do.
I move to no longer combine the Smith STEM specialist with the science teacher position.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All of those in favor of no longer merging the two positions, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. All right. Continuing on, are there other thoughts, suggestions, recommendations? Ethan, yes.
So I have two. One is more a question for Liz. Going through the various, or back and forth, Walcott, is a position being cut at Walcott for music?
No. So Wolcott currently has 0.9 music positions. In total, our elementary schools have 10.5 positions. In total, we would go down to 9.5 positions. So that cut of 1 FTE would be spread across all of our elementary schools based upon class size.
With Walcott, there's no, it's not being negatively impacted.
No.
That was question one.
Paul, did you want to
Yeah,
talk about that a
I
little
was
more?
just share some more specifics. I believe, as Liz said, right now, the 0.9, that means that there are 4.5 days of instruction during the 5-day week for Wolcott. Under the proposed model, in all likelihood, Wolcott would go to 4 days per week, as opposed to 4.5. So that's the incremental kind of slice. And you'll see that at some of the other schools, based on the enrollment and how many days of instruction would be necessary based on the enrollment.
But it wouldn't be cutting any lesson, or it wouldn't be depriving anybody of any lessons, or, I don't know.
The assignment of the lessons is based on, a number of factors. In 4th grade, realistically, everyone's new. In 5th grade, it's a question of how many students are returning. Wolcott has had just a dramatically strong program for years and years. They have a 95% participation rate. They're one of the highest schools. Teachers do an amazing job there. Looking at some of the numbers, and I can only speak for averages across every instrument and every grade, it would look like Wolcott would be between 4 and 5 students per instrumental group on average. How that dials down to, in a particular 4th grade, if someone's a newcomer or not, and how much leeway or leverage the teacher has, I can't particularly say, but I can tell you that if I did the ballpark average right now, I believe the average in mass would be in and around 4, so it does go up by about a half of a student per group. So somewhere along the line, the groups would be, that slightly larger.
And if more students came in, what I thought I read somewhere was you guys would adjust accordingly? As best you can?
Yeah, we will do our staffing at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, based on what the enrollments end up to be at each of the individual schools.
Okay, thank you. My second question or second point is, right now with the, totally on a different track, since Lauren asked what season it was baseball season. But my question is, right now we cap the athletic fee at $700, which is that correct?
So currently, we are supplementing our pay-to-play fee with our ESSER funds.
Yep.
So each family has a $100 per sport fee with a cap of $400 per family. We had planned to go back to our fees that were in place prior to our ESSER grant, which was $175 per sport with a $700 cap per family.
So in the budget is a $700 cap.
It is.
So I calculated if we went to a $350 cap, approximately $61,000. Is there a way you can check that?
Certainly, I can do it while we talk.
Okay, and if so, I'd like to make a motion that we cap the sports fee at $350 per family, just because I think it's important to get as many kids to participate as possible, and money shouldn't be a detriment. So I'd like to make that motion.
Should we wait till we get confirmation?
Yeah, you probably better get confirmation.
Could I ask clarification, Ethan? Are you proposing then that at the current rate?
Yeah, the 175.
Okay, so you're proposing that it actually be rolled back to the current rate as well as the cap of 350. The
Well,
budget
I'm
is
assuming
based
that's
on.
already in the budget, so I'm assuming. Yeah, but if somebody wants to reduce it, I'd support that as well, but I'm assuming that doesn't have the votes. Okay.
Just as a point of clarification, that is what I have in the budget, but you do need to actually adopt that rate and adopt the cap this evening, just so that you know.
Yes, Caitlin.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
You are absolutely, yes.
Sorry, I just wasn't sure. Just a clarifying question, do students that qualify for free and reduced lunch qualify for like a fee waiver or some sort of thing for the sports that they sign up for?
They do. Any student who requests a fee waiver because of financial hardship is granted one.
Okay, thank you.
Ari, and then Claire, and we'll come back to your point. Yes. Thank you.
So I just want to return back to follow on Ethan's question about the music program. As a parent who's both children through the West Hartford Public Schools, I mean, that was their thing. My son's at a send-off to Disney right now concert in the jazz band. So I and my family value music education, and that's part of the reason that we came here. So I guess I just have a pretty direct question. I know that there are concerns about access to services, children not receiving instruction appropriate to their needs. And I guess my question is there going to be a major change from the day-to-day music program in terms of offerings and access to music instruction given what the proposed budget for next year will do?
When you qualify it as a major change, Ari, I mean, my conversations within the instructional leaders, my answer would be no. I don't perceive it as a major change. It will be a change. I couldn't lie about that.
Right.
And I certainly don't want to take anything away from the outstanding efforts of our music teachers. They're just incredibly skilled, and they do an amazing job. And I think the public support really reflects that.
Yeah.
How much it's valued.
I just want to. I feel like the community letters that we're getting, and that's why I just want to give you the opportunity to clarify.
Sure.
People are implying or thinking that somebody is going to lose their position, or somebody is no longer going to be part of the music program. And from my understanding, that is not the case. We have someone who is retiring of their own accord. Is anyone going to lose their job is what I'm asking you.
There should be no loss of job. However, there will be reassignment. The retirement that we have is not at the elementary level. So at this time, it would be a shift to a different level.
Yep.
But we have open positions in music in general. In terms of identifying this as a place where we could have some savings, our staffing level within instrumental music specifically has been flat for 10 years. During that time, we've seen from 2013 till present, we've had a reduction of about 300 students. So when you divide out 300 students and you say, okay, I may average that across who's fourth grade or fifth grade, and fourth grade has at least within strings, they have typically 2 rehearsals per week versus all of the other instruments 1. It equates to about, that difference of 300 equates to about an ability to staff it at a 1.0 FTE fewer to return it to the staffing levels from 2013. When you look at that in real numbers, what does that mean? It's about, if I just look average across, it's about a half a student difference in terms of each individual group.
Okay.
So we all recognize there's no such thing as a half a student.
Yep.
But, so some groups will be one, maybe at a particular school, 2 students larger for that group. Some places would be unfazed. And it really depends on variables such as the skill level of the child, the flexibility of that teacher's schedule, the number of students interested in a particular instrument versus a different instrument. So, I'd be lying if I'd say there's zero impact,
right.
but I would not qualify it as programmatic change.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Citizens request. The teacher is here.
Excuse me, sir. No,
The teacher is
no,
here.
excuse me,
You
sir.
can ask the teacher.
You are out of order.
Mr.
No,
Luongo is here.
excuse me,
You can
sir.
ask him.
Please model appropriate behavior. Please. Please model appropriate behavior. Thank you. Claire.
People have mentioned that children with special needs might need individualized lessons. Do you believe that can continue? And I guess the big question is, are there groups with 1 or 2 students over the last few years where there wasn't special needs? I mean, has there been room in the schedule for private lessons?
So that's an excellent question. I think what we're talking about as I understand the numbers, our participation rate averages between 80% to 95%, with 80% really being only at one school, 95% really being at one school. When you look across the remainder of the schools, participation averages around 85% among all 4th and 5th graders. Probably slightly higher in 4th grade, and perhaps a small fall off in 5th grade, but I would imagine that varies. I believe what I've heard from a lot of the public comment is the strength of the Wolcott program, no questions asked. At one point in time, Wolcott had a theme, and they've maintained that town meeting atmosphere where they are performing on a regular basis. So it is a very high engagement school in terms of the music program, and therefore I do believe they're likely capturing a greater percentage of students with special needs. And from what I've heard, both here at public comment and in some of the conversations with the music department, they are able to do some groups of 2. I couldn't tell you if they were doing 1. I don't have that information firsthand. So that when you increase across the board to an average, going up by about a half a student, could that have an impact? Certainly it can. I could not answer for you more definitively than that to be able to say it would impact and, to what degree.
Now, you had mentioned that you don't foresee anyone losing their position, but do you foresee staff quitting over having a half a day at another school to help cover?
So my understanding of teachers who travel a half a day, well, I'll say that half a day is very specific. My understanding of teachers who travel, currently there are 3 schools with Duffy, Smith, and Charter Oak that have teachers that do not need to travel at all. Under this revision, Duffy would potentially have to travel. Smith and Charter won't have to, because the teacher that is there does half instrumental and half Suzuki, excuse me. Solisti is on the other end of that spectrum. So that split assignment means that there is a second teacher that is coming into Smith and a second teacher that's coming into Charter Oak to pick up the other half of those instrumental lessons. So at the end of the day, we'd be adding travel to one teacher's schedule. We might be changing the number of days for which a teacher is traveling from maybe they were only traveling 1 day to now they might be, and I shouldn't say traveling, I should say in different schools. Maybe previously they were in one school for 1 day and now they'd be in that school for 2 days. That's the impact on travel.
And so a music teacher, gym teacher, classroom teacher, are they all on the same teacher contract in the elementary guaranteed a duty-free lunch and 1 planning period every day?
Yes.
And so just a scenario, if you had a situation where you had, unfortunately, we're not lowering our special ed numbers, but if you had 2 special ed providers that had smaller caseloads in a subsequent year, would you then most likely look, if they don't have a full caseload and they have up to 2-3 planning periods, would you evaluate and possibly reallocate a special ed teacher in those circumstances?
Yeah, I could answer that question. So we do look at caseloads annually, and we do reallocate based on where student need is on an annual basis.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Again, with the current topic regarding the music program, any questions, comments, or thoughts? Ethan, it looks like you have,
I just want to clarify. So Walcott right now is 4.5 days, and it'll go to 4 days.
That's
Less
that's
projected.
the current projection.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. Thank you again for what has been shared, and thank you for helping to explain that it's not a matter of eliminating a position. It's trying to be efficient with time and scheduling. One thing I do want to know, and I appreciate hearing you just mention in terms of flexibility where there's a student need, and appreciate overall throughout the year there's always attentiveness to what is happening with scheduling and all of those pieces and how we do want to be responsive to those needs. For those young people that may need more time or more attention when it comes to learning or, with the music piece, will that be compromised because of what is being currently proposed?
So what I can offer, I don't know if I can speak to that specifically, but what I can offer is that a reduction of about a half a day from what I understand. Generally, the music teachers are able to provide, on average, I'm told, about 9 lessons in a day in terms of scheduling them out and having the breaks in between and all of that. So that would be somewhere between 4 or 5 fewer lessons, which is where the average group size would potentially increase. Depending on if the student is in a 4th grade or a 5th grade, and there's the opportunity, there's more, with strings specifically, there's more flexibility if you're having 2 lesson periods per week to maybe have some smaller group sizes and then have a larger group, kind of an ensemble approach. But that's probably the best amount of detail that I'm able to provide specifically until we get to see who the students are in the classroom, what their needs are, and so on and so forth. But if you can imagine it, at the end of the day, it would be for the student population projected for next year for Wolcott or for any school, that reduction of a half a day translates into 4 or 5 fewer lessons. Some of that might be gobbled up just by fewer students that are technically attending. Some of that might be, hey, I have 2 or 3 fewer opportunities for a lesson, and therefore I have to have those students in a group of, again, on an average of somewhere about 4 to 5 students.
And with that projection, and again, I know there's no crystal ball, so thank you so much for speaking as best as possible. With the projection of an increase to about 4 or 5, what is with where things are now in terms of this number of students in a group to what is projected may happen? What difference would you say that is?
So using the, just the raw numbers that we have for 4th grade and dividing it out by the number of lessons on average, it averages currently to 4, and so it would go up to 4.5. But what it really means at the end of the day is, the number of fewer lessons, I think.
Okay, thank you. Gail, was your hand raised? Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. So if we had we had this savings of about $138,000, and we've agreed to reinstate the STEM position, that does leave us about $34,000. So my question is, if we were to potentially reinstate part of the music position, maybe as a half-time position or something to that effect, we could potentially use the rest of that money and more or less, because I believe you, Liz, you said that the last time I asked, the music position was approximately the same amount of money as the STEM position. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so the full-time music position is a little over 92,000.
I'm sorry?
A little over 92,000.
Okay, so if we, and again, it may not, I'm just curious, Paul, if that would even be possible to reinstate the position 50% as opposed to 100%.
Oh, it's certainly possible, Gail. It's a staffing question that I think you're asking. It would just mean within our open positions that we'd hire for, and I don't know, Julio, if you know, based on what that FTE looks like, we might be hiring in someone. We could create a split, and we'd be hiring in someone at halftime.
Yeah, I'm just, if we're going by, and I'll defer to Liz as the numbers person, but if we did 92, and I think you're talking 30,000, is that what you're saying about?
34,000.
So whatever that percentage would come out to is probably a 0.4 position, so a 0.4, I don't know. I don't know what that would be like, if what the market would be for that, because it wouldn't entail benefits or anything. So it may not be a very marketable position, but it's certainly something that we could look for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I guess I'm not really stuck on the 0.4. I guess if it was to go to 0.5, to me, it's fairly within the same number. What is the number where you do offer benefits?
0.5.
0.5. So then I'm proposing a 0.5.
Yeah, is that a different number if you add in the benefits on your number?
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, so again, it would be essentially posting for a 0.5 position, which certainly is something we could do. And, you know, I don't know what the market is out there right now for music. I know we did meet with several folks at UConn during the career fair that were graduating, so it's something that could be possible. I just don't know if it's something that someone would want.
Can I just say one more thing? So I'm just understanding the person that would be reduced in the current budget, correct? There's a, well, the person's being reallocated.
Right, but no one's being, no position is being reduced as far as their FTE allotment is.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Caitlin.
I was just wondering, in your conversations that I'm pretty sure you said this, that you had conversations with the music teachers and or in the music department of what this would look like, if there were any other issues that they felt were very important or pressing that we haven't yet brought up, or anything that they had serious concerns about in terms of bringing the positions down to 9.5, right?
No, I would say it's fair to say that the music teachers would prefer to not see this reduction. It's going to do the most for their flexibility to be able to provide, you know, obviously an excellent program. There were other concerns when I talked with the music. I talked with the music supervisor. We have different elements of the music program that we were leveraging to find, basically to find funding for, so that there was not a programmatic impact. Places, you know, high school is a place where if you don't get the student enrollments, that a program may not run. And so when you run into we had a situation where we had a lower enrollment, and if we weren't able to fund the position, that meant that that element of the music program simply would not run. That's an example. While it's not us cutting the program, it's a de facto program cut, because the opportunity for that program to live no longer exists. And so that was something that we were able to find. You know, we made that a priority to fund and found savings in other places. So there were just, you know, in this particular budget climate, there were a lot of needs, and we were trying to spread those needs across so that first of all, so that no program was going to be implicated in a major way. Certainly there'd be impacts anywhere where we cut in the budget. So there were those other concerns that they talked with us about. Middle school is another one in terms of just how the team size is going to happen, and once that team size is set, that dictates the number of musical groups that run. So that's another place where we were working with the music department and others to assure the appropriate funding is available to run the program the way that we want.
Claire.
So if I can be directly asked a question, will any student in 4th or 5th grade not get instrument lessons? And do you think there'll be a negative impact from a pull-out group of 5, or 5 students in a practice once a week?
So we don't have a model where we would, to my knowledge, where we would tell a student they could not participate. I think a student's choice to participate is sometimes based on their ability for individual attention. if I'm able to run a group of 3 or 2 versus I'm running a group of 4 or 5, there is a difference in terms of the amount of individual attention. It's an impact. I don't know if it's a negative impact. It's not the same. Obviously, if I were able to fund the whole thing in a one-on-one, two-on-one, that would be ideal. Where, you know, it will reduce on average by about across the whole district. It'll impact group size by on average of about half a student. So that translates into a student or so extra in a group.
Gail, let's have Jason and then Gail. Just because you've had a question, let's have Jason ask a question. Oh, yes.
As a point of order, do I need to make that as a motion, or do I come afterwards?
Yes, you would have to formally make a motion, yes. Okay. Do you want to hear the question, Jason's piece first, or do you want to, okay.
All right, thank you. Does the district currently offer, or has it ever offered in the past, subsidized purchase or rental fees for instruments?
I'm not expert in this. I do know we have a gift of music program, which I believe does offer financial support. Can you speak to that, Liz?
I can. We have an instrument rental program where students pay $105 a year to rent one of our instruments. In addition, again, if there's any sort of financial hardship, we waive the whole annual fee for instruments.
Thank you.
Gail?
I'd like to make a motion that we take the remaining money that is from the health reduction and we fund, I'm going to say half a music position, bring back half the music position that we are reallocating.
And before calling for a second, thank you for the motion, before calling for a second, is there a way, and not to put you on the spot again, Liz, to see what that difference, additional difference would be? Because again, we just have the 34,000 there.
So my estimate is that would be approximately 46,000 of an addition to the budget based on a 0.5 position.
Is that with benefits?
Yes. So you can see that the net adjustments, the net amendments, if we did that, would be a positive $12,000, would be adding $12,000 to the proposed budget.
So may I suggest, Gail, to restate your motion specifying that amount there? Wait, you could just...
The dollar amount?
Yeah, or you could say 0.5 in the amount of.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we reinstate the music position, 0.5 of the music position, and allocate the remaining money from the health reduction for a total of $46,305.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Question. Is it possible to get, because it depends on how much, if anything else is there in terms of my vote, whether for or against. So is it possible to see what else anybody's going to propose? Because, you know, if we could do that.
Well, we have the motion and it's been seconded, so we can vote on, we have to vote on it, on the motion. However, I'll just pause with that. So, any other discussion? So again, the motion on the floor is to add the 0.5 elementary instrumental music position in the amount of $46,305. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll go aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
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 Any abstentions? Okay, the motion does not pass. Let us continue on, because hearing from what you said, that there are other things that may contribute to a path forward. So other pieces, concerns, questions, suggestions to put out. Other suggested motions?
If you don't mind, Lorna, I just wanted to respond to Ethan's question regarding what the dollar value would be if we were to put the cap in of $300. Unfortunately, I don't have enough information to calculate that. If we did a 3-sport cap, which would be $525 per family, we would have 233 families qualify for that, as opposed to 115, and the financial impact of that would be $20,650. But unfortunately, I just don't have the numbers as to what a 2-sport cap would be.
So you had said in the emails today, it was 115, I think, that we're doing 4 sports?
Yes.
So I calculated 115 times 350? So that was
350. Well, so there would be many more families. I mean, there are many families where students play 3 sports per year.
Yeah.
So rather than, at 4 sports, 115 families hit the 4. At 3 sports, 233 families hit.
Right.
If we were to go to a 2-sport cap, I would think that number would increase significantly because many more families would hit a 2-sport cap.
Right,
So it
but-
could be 500 or 600 families, or it could be, we have 2,600 participants.
Yeah,
So I just don't know how many would hit it, so.
So I figured 115 families meet the 4-sport cap. So that's 115 times 350.
Well, currently, we just don't get that funding. We have a cap if those 115 families do not pay anything more than the 4 sports.
No, I got that. I'm trying to go from 4 to 2. So that'd be roughly 40,000. And then the 175 for the 3-sport families would be 119, because I figured the ones, unless I misunderstood, I assume they're either, if they're a 4-sport family, they fit into 3. Is that incorrect?
So I guess the way I would calculate the lost revenue is to determine how many families would hit the cap.
Okay.
So I know that if 233 families hit the cap versus the 115, that's a loss of revenue of 20,000.
Right.
Unfortunately, without knowing how many families would hit the 2-sport cap, I don't know how much revenue I'm going to lose. So we have a whole group of families that now are not going to pay for their 3rd sport.
Right.
And I just don't know how many that is without getting that information from our athletic director. And I don't think it's an even ratio, because I think many more families have students who play 2 sports.
Okay, to me, the numbers, but I may be missing the information based on what I assumed you said. So,
What I may suggest, and I appreciate the questions, however, in the moment, I feel like I'm in an accounting class right now, in the moment. But
it's always good to have accounting.
Yeah, absolutely so, yes. However, bringing it a little higher level, in terms, it seems like play-to-play is what you're speaking about. That's the
Yes.
subject we're talking about. And as we know that we have pay-to-play, we know that 2 years ago, we used ESSER funding to apply to pay-to-play where there was no pay-to-play fee for families. We know last year that we pivoted and we added half of ESSER funding going towards pay-to-play, and the other half, about 218,000, pardon my numbers are not exactly correct, was to address providing supports, addressing mental health and learning loss of our students. And we clearly have heard that quite often. It was certainly well spent. And so I hear you, rightfully so, bringing up the topic again in terms of moving forward, because what's currently proposed in the budget is reinstating the full pay-to-play. And thank you, Liz, as you summarized, with the full reinstatement of pay-to-play, that would be $175,000, pardon me, $175 per sport, $700 per family. That would be the cap.
Okay.
That's currently where it is. And so there's some discussion of how to possibly modify that. Are there any other thoughts or suggestions in terms of addressing or responding to pay-to-play? Jason.
Yeah, thank you for presenting that alternative. Now, I want to see if I understand the math correctly. By lowering the cap, that means that there's additional support that's needed from the general fund in order to make up the difference. Is that right? Yeah.
You can ask Liz, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so for this year, the cap is at 150.
So this year, families are paying $100 per sport
Yeah.
with a cap of $400 per family.
Per family.
And then the ESSER funds are supporting the other $75 per sport for our students.
Okay.
So the ESSER funds this year are supporting $218,000 to go towards pay-to-play sports.
And so if we rolled that over to this year, 218 to this year, that would maintain the cost of paying for pay to play this year?
Yes, so I think you're saying if the general fund offered a subsidy or support of $218,000, then the fee for families would remain at $100 per sport with a $400 cap per family. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Okay.
Claire?
I had thought that it was 500,000 for next year as far as the full funding, and we were in the 400s, 480. The ESSER funding 2 years ago, I believe, was 480,000.
So 2 years ago, to fully pay it was 480. This year, we did not split it evenly in half. Our families are paying 100 and ESSER is paying 75. So just proportionally, that equated to 218,000.
And so 480 would be the cost for next year if you funded,
If we funded all of it, it would be around 480 to 500,000. But I think what Jason was saying is that we would still continue to charge families $100. The general fund would just pick up the portion that ESSER is currently picking up, is I believe what you were suggesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So if we maintain it at the same level in the budget next year, not this year, next year would be $215,000 more because we don't have the ESSER funds.
Right, because we no longer have the ESSER funds to use for that. If we wanted to keep the fee for our families at $100 with a $400 cap,
Right.
the general fund would have to make up that difference, which is approximately $218,000.
Okay, but are we talking about this budget or are we?
Yes,
Okay, we're
this
talking about.
budget.
So we'd have to add in $218,000 to this budget.
Correct.
So recognizing where we are with discussion regarding pay to play, and have heard a couple of different proposals, but the most recent one has been along the lines of if we were to continue what we're doing now with it being $100 per sport, cap at $400 per family, that would require adding $218,000 to the general fund. That is okay. Teammates' thoughts? Any action steps with that? What's been discussed?
Speaking for myself, I'm fine with it as long as we're trying to stay below 5%, which I believe I come out with 4.93. So
Would you like to make a motion to,
I will, because last year we talked about trying to maintain helping the families with pay for play, and I realize things change and the economy, especially with the ESSER, is difficult, but I'm willing to make that proposal as opposed to mine, which Liz can't figure out. So, which is on me, but I should have asked you earlier, so I'll make the
Ethan,
motion.
you're making a motion to,
Continue what we're doing, which is $100 per sport with a cap of 400. Did I get it right?
is there a second?
Seconded?
Discussion? So again, the motion on the floor is to contribute.
Go for it.
Oh,
I've been speaking.
discussion, please.
No, I just think it's important. I think sports is important. We heard how important music was to families. I think sports is also important. And I think even though families may qualify through the government to pay, I still think it becomes it's a obstacle and handicap, and I'd hate to see kids not get the chance to play because I think it's critical to give everybody the opportunity. So that's all I have.
Other comments? Yes, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this original scheme that was proposed was a compromise proposal that allowed for us to fund mental health for our youngest learners and also to support families in paying for sports participation. Now, I believe this is an effort to, stay with that proposal that I made last year and to stabilize the cost of participation in sports. We've seen several different kinds of payment schemes over the last couple of years, and I think this is something that putting it in the general fund helps to stabilize that, create more long-term expectations for families. And I'm also heartened by the conversation at the town council. Their support for funding sports in our town is also welcomed. And one of the things that I've learned in the last couple of years in looking at participation in sports, despite the variations in payments and payment schemes, is that participation has remained relatively stable. So that suggests that whether or not there are changes, that families continue to participate, and there are many options for families to utilize the waiver if they do qualify for free and reduced lunch that requires no in-office sort of application. It is an anonymous process and benefits everyone, and there is no questions asked. I think this is something that continues the plan that we had in the last year. Of course, it'd be great to add the $500,000 for everything, but this is a modest stabilization, I believe.
Other comments? Yes, Ari.
I just want to second what Jason is saying. I was supposed to attend the Board of Ed town council meeting, but I wasn't feeling well, so I actually watched it. And I was actually pretty surprised at the town council's support of pay to play. It was really the hottest topic of the discussion. So I do think kind of having some level of compromise where we're not asking for the full amount of pay to play, but looking to kind of maintain what we've been able to offer this year with their support, I think it would really benefit a lot of families in the town.
Other comments, discussion? Right, regarding the current motion on the floor to contribute to pay to play, keeping things as they currently are with $100 per sport, $400 cap per family. All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? The ayes have it. All right. Other pieces to discuss, suggest regarding the budget? Again, with where we currently are, we had recognized because of the health reserve additional funding with that. We have now reinstated, rather no longer having the merger of the position at Smith. We have also are keeping the current pay-to-play fees in term 100 per sport, 400 cap per family. Anything else with respect to the 2023-2024 budget to suggest or comment on? Ethan, yes.
I have a proposal which actually won't cost any money. One of the concerns I have is I look at the budget and I look at how it impacted people this year, particularly the STEM and the music program, is it's going to get worse next year. We had $2 million that rolled off of almost $2 million of ESSER funds, have another $4 million coming next year. I think as great a job as I think Liz does and her team, and I appreciate all the information, I don't think doing it from a March to April timeframe is sufficient time for us. I think we should be more active, and I'd like to request, whether it's a committee or a task force, that we work with the administration to look for opportunities to savings of costs as opposed to getting into mid-March and being presented with stuff. I think it's incumbent upon us to take more responsibility. So I'd like to make a motion. I'm not sure exactly how this fits, but that we set up a task force with members of the board, whether 2 or 3 people, working with the school administration and maybe the public to look at the budget for next year, as probably starting in July, as opposed to waiting till next March.
Thank you. Respectfully receive the motion. However, it is not at this time to make that motion because we're talking about the budget and specific line items, dollar and cents wise. I hear what you're saying in terms of process wise, certainly so, but I'm going to ask if we can reserve that motion for another time. Not at this particular time, right now.
We can do it today, though?
Let's get through the budget. Let's go to the budget first. Start with that. Thank you. Thank you. Any other specific suggestions, comments regarding the proposed budget? Yes, Jason.
Yes. I'm curious about the teacher in residence program that we have here at West Hartford Public Schools, and as I understand it, it's a successful model for recruiting teachers from underrepresented groups, and I'd like to understand if the remaining funding from the health reduction funds would be able to cover an additional teacher in residence.
I can't speak from the fund aspect. I think what I would just tackle that from is just the capacity to actually find folks to do it. So right now, I've signed a contract to have 2 folks come on board next year. Our principal has been working really hard to tap people on the shoulder to try to find someone that is a West Hartford person that wants to do it, and unfortunately we haven't had a lot of luck right now. So I've reached out to CREC, and CREC has said that they will partner with us and send us essentially 2 folks from another district that would become ours, again with the caveat that we would have to find, and the promise is that we would have 2 jobs for them. And so I know as we've talked about and gone over the budget for this year and taking a look at the elementary world, as we've seen there is a reduction in some of the staffing at the elementary. Really wanted to make sure that our 2 candidates from this year have spots. And so certainly it's something that I would be happy to talk about. I just want to make sure that if we're making promises, that our promises are promises. And I'm a little concerned to say, hey, let's go to 3. One, if we could find the actual 3 candidates, but then do we have 3 actual elementary openings next year? And so, like I said, I'm trying to be cautious with my promises to people these days. Mm-hmm. And so if that's something the board wants me to do, I'm happy to look at that. But like I said, I think one of the key components to the program is essentially making a commitment that we will find spaces for them in our classrooms and they will be our actual teachers. Mm. So if we have 3 for next year, that's could be a hard number to staff. But again, I don't know if that answers your question completely, Jason.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Are those positions strictly for classroom instruction?
Yeah, so right now that's what the program is doing. They are opening up the opportunity to do special ed. And so I was one of the first to jump on board that. So what I was told is right now they really want to pilot that with a few districts, but that we are on the wait list to get in. So if we got into the wait list, I would certainly come back and talk to Liz and certainly kind of figure out that piece, because that would be something I know I've spoken to Melissa, and she and I are very excited about partnering in that. But at the current point in time, they're saying that we're going to have to wait till next year to get enrolled in that. And that's really where that program stands. We haven't heard any other contingencies for other positions or other disciplines.
Mm-hmm. Would it be possible to have the teacher in residence position do music instruction?
No, so that program is specific to elementary classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give a plug, our 2 folks are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Claire, so this is our first year with a teacher in residence, and correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and those 2 teachers will then work in elementary, and part of the reason we do it in elementary is because at the higher levels, you don't know if you're going to need a science teacher or social studies, where elementary can go to any grade, correct?
Correct, yeah, unless you're kindergarten. So really, right now, we're looking at 1.5 is what our, K-5 really, but probably 1.5 is what our thinking is.
Okay. And do you have any shortage of mentor teachers that are interested in mentoring and having the resident work with them?
So right now, that hasn't been the concern. Last year, when it was our first year in the program, we had a nice, robust pool of folks that wanted to be mentors. So we went through a pretty competitive selection process. And like I said, I don't know that that's really the holdup. It's really looking at folks that want to go into the program, and then making sure that the following year that we have essentially 2 to 3 open classrooms for them.
So I wanted to ask a question about the equity director. I know that Rosanna Haskins is going to leave at the end of the year. And I had a question, I guess, Paul, I would probably direct this mostly to you. If we were to hold that position open for a year and not fill it, just kind of leave it open, realizing that there are almost 4 people working in the equity office, and I think that the program has been fairly successful under Dr. Haskins and her team. I just was curious in terms of savings to the district for a year, and what your thoughts were in terms of how that might look or work. Because I also know that we've left other positions open. When we've come to budget before and a position has sort of been open, we haven't necessarily filled it.
Sure. So we do actually have a position that's open in the equity office when you talk about, I believe it's 3.5 total staff. And I know we have another position that we've held open just based on a person leaving mid-year. So honestly, given the choice between the leadership position, someone who's going to set the vision for that work that's carrying forward our equity, our equity mission from a visioning and planning point of view, to me that would be the most critical out of the positions there that are currently open within that office.
Are you saying there's another position in the equity office that's also open? Or somebody
Correct.
left? Okay, so that would leave another position. There's a position that isn't filled and Dr. Haskins' position.
Correct.
What's the plan on the position? So is the position that isn't filled in the budget?
Yes. So, if a position, like for instance, we have, and I'll just use a different example, we have with one of our assistant principals that had left, we had moved someone into an assistant principal position. Their position currently, in that move with our administrators, we left the other position unfilled for the remainder of the year because it's honestly too, when someone's coming in on an interim contract in the middle of the year, shifting someone out of what would more than likely be a teaching position or trying to recruit someone from another district midstream to take an interim contract is unlikely. So when a position remains unfilled like that, we leave that position in the contract, or in the budget, and we realize the savings if it remains unfilled. In a situation that we are right now with our equity, I think this is a dramatically important area for us. I would definitely want to fill that leadership position, and we wouldn't be moving on any other positions until we had the leader in place who would be able to do that. So it's possible that we could, delay that or see where we are closer to the start of the school year in terms of how all that all fills out.
Other questions or comments? Points for discussion? I'll ask again. All right. So with that, Liz, pardon me, all of the thank you. Okay, yes. So with where we are now, the final budget, proposed budget, is $190,124,680. That is the amount before us. Again, before calling for the vote, any other discussion points regarding the budget? All right, Charlotte, may you please call the roll? We're going to do a roll vote.
Dr. Chang?
Yes.
Mr. Goldman?
Yes.
Dr. Harris?
No.
Dr. Kamoff?
Yes.
Ms. Nezarella?
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson?
Yes. So the budget passes at the amount seen before us, $190,124,680. All right. Team, thank you so very much for all that you've done to get to this point. I just want to say, as we wrap things up, this is not an easy process for anyone. Those that are watching online, those that are here in the audience, not audience, but who are here in the chambers, and those that are here. As we know, it's not something that we just do in a one quick vote. It's not that the budget is presented to us and we vote that same night. We've had workshops. 2 workshops, we've had discussions, we've had emails, we've had public comment, we've had public hearing. Please know that we put a lot of thought into this budget. And when doing so, it's not just about thinking about the budget in the here and now. It's recognizing that we will have to come before you again next year. And we know that next year things are going to look a lot different regarding the budget. We have been able to do certain things and make certain modifications because of ESSER funding. The reality is there is no ESSER funding next year. And so if this was any indication of real talk, real discussions, it's going to be all the more next year. However, please do not be mistaken. With however real talk or serious our conversations are, our priority collectively is always to ensure we are doing the best that we can with the young people we are charged to serve and the families we are charged to serve. That will always be our mission. That will always be our passion. And so again, thank you so much again for your time, and we'll see you again. All right, now moving on to new business, and there is no new business.
Can we bring up my proposal?
When we come to agenda items, I'm going to ask for it then. Thank you. All right, thank you. No new business. We'll take a 1-minute pause as folks adjust themselves. Excuse me, those are in the chambers. We are still in a meeting. Thank you so much. Now moving on to staff communications and reports. Well, I respectfully will see if there are any superintendent reports.
The only other report is the Next Chapter bookstore will be featured on Fox 61 after the break and continues to be an amazing experience for our students and the community. Keep an eye out for more information on the Unified Sports Spring Fling event, which is being put together to celebrate all of our students. And lastly, as I believe our student had mentioned, spring sports began on Monday, and it was great seeing all of our courts and fields and tracks teeming with activity.
Thank you so much. Staff reports, board discussions, seeing none. Now moving on to routine matters. The financial report, seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the financial report for the period ending February 28th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Claire. Discussion. Thank you so much, Liz, for being here. And who is going to present our financial report to us?
I drew the straw.
All right, Ethan. Thank you.
The broken out, the funds are basically in 4 categories. The first being the general fund report, which was budgeted for fiscal year 23. Fiscal year 23 at $181.2 million. Second category is state and federal grants fund. At this point, the school system has $17.1 million in funds entering the beginning of the fiscal year. And the third category is special funds. This covers 8 different funds. And then the fourth is the nutrition service funds, which at the end of February had $3.1 million. As of the February year-to-date numbers, the general fund had year-to-date expenditures of $107.9 million against a total year budget of $181.2. At this point, the school administration is projecting a positive $75,000 variance to the 2023 budget. Full year projections are, so that's the full year projection of $75,000. While positive, the variance is less than 0.1% for the full fiscal year, and the overall variance did not change from the December update. So the number has changed in terms of the categories. Salaries has a positive variance of $1.1 million, the largest positive variance in the teacher's assistants category line of $500,000, and $225,000 for teachers. On the negative side, the largest variance is in paraprofessional salaries of $225,000, and the variance had a positive increase since the December report of $405,000. Benefits had a positive $50,000 variance, basically in the unemployment tax line. The third category is in purchase services, which had a negative variance of $1,060,000, and that variance increased $460,000 since December. Largest category is contractual services with a negative variance of $850,000. In terms of the state and federal grants, there was 11.9 expected in the expenditures for this year, fiscal year, and that'll leave 4.6 million for future, or not assigned directly, if I got that right. That we, as I think you mentioned, Lorna, that will become important when we budget for the year after next. In terms of special funds, the different funds are projected to end the June fiscal year with 1.9 million balance, which is a net increase of 35,000 from June 2022. Year-over-year changes was minimal in terms of the individual balances. And then in terms of the nutrition service funds, there's been a significant increase in the fund balance, going from being over 1.6 million at the end of February 2022 to a balance of 3.1 at the end of February 23. And that includes an estimated 118,000 in equipment purchases. As has been discussed, the fund has recently gone from funding all students to those in needs, now going back, I believe, to all students effective now. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions regarding what we've received concerning our financial report? Seeing and hearing none, all of those in favor for its approval, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you so much, Ethan. Approval of the minutes. Now seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of March 21st, 2023.
So moved?
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Renee. Discussion. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Continuing on, any other information or discussions? We do not have any. Now looking to future business, announcement of future meeting dates. The next Board of Education meeting is on Tuesday, April the 18th, 2023, where we'll have our regular Board of Ed meeting at 7 o'clock here in room 314, followed by Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2023, regular Board of Education meeting, 7 o'clock here in room 314. Then followed again Tuesday, May 16th, regular Board of Education meeting, 7 o'clock here in room 314. Is there a request for any future agenda items?
That'd be me. Yeah, I'd like to make my proposal that we set up a task force or finance committee, however you want to define it, to get more immediacy in terms of looking at the budget for next year and seeing if there's creative ways we can work with the school administration. I realize they're doing it already, but I think we should be part of the solution, not be waiting at it passively.
Thank you, Ethan. Duly noted, recognized, thank you. And I know that there are some other recommended agenda items that have surfaced as well. And now that we are at the point past the budget, we can certainly recognize those also.
There's a motion.
Well, with it being at, what I'm suggesting, so I'm going to give, you choose. If you make it as a motion, that means it has to be voted on, and a majority vote would allow it, but a not majority vote means it's done. Or if it's a suggested future agenda item, then that allows us to discuss it as an agenda item. So it's your choice. Do you care to make it as a motion?
Yeah, I'm not really sure I get the distinction.
It's either,
I get the point, it's either get yay or nay, but I'm not sure what the alternative is.
I'm trying, so respecting the suggestion, if you keep it as a suggested future agenda item, that is something that will allow us to come together to look at it as an agenda item, as opposed to if you raise it as a motion, and then if it's seconded, and then it's open for vote. If you receive majority vote, then it will come before us. If it does not receive majority vote at this particular time, if a vote were put onto it, that means it does not go anywhere. And so the choice is it's up to you. You can leave it as a future agenda item, which so far I've received it as that, but if you choose to make it as a motion,
Can I share?
yes.
So, what it takes to pull the budget together and all the information that goes into each director and person within the district and when that budget money's available is one issue that we would need to find out, okay? Because you can't, they start in September. And so in September, they start putting the budget together. And then we meet multiple times in March to hear about the different things and have workshops. So the sooner you want them to put it together to get in sooner, there's a lot of discussion that should be had, and if you keep it as an agenda item, we're not going to vote right now on it. If you want to vote right now on it, we're not going to have the background information.
So if I can clarify, what I was looking to do wasn't look for a budget, but look at where the costs are now, and then have discussions, are there different ways to do things? So one of the things, and I forget where I read it, where I think it was one of the nearby town, I think it was Glastonbury, but I could be wrong, where they talked about they were able to bring some of the as classes in I'm going to say it wrong, but pupil services into the Glastonbury schools and have kids, instead of going out of town, to have take classes there. It was a better experience, I assume, for the students.
Which we do.
And it costs less the budget.
Yeah.
And I assume you guys, the schools.
Melissa talked about in her budget, we extensively work on keeping students in our district and bringing students back from outplacements for that reason alone,
No.
because of the financial costs of that.
And I appreciate it, and I think that's great. I just feel, as members of the school board, we should be more active in supporting the administration, and I feel neglectful or negligent because I'm sort of sitting here reading the data and saying, I'll choose column A versus column B. I just think, I mean, I'm fine postponing to have a discussion with everybody individually, so I'm fine doing that, because I think it sounds like I'll have better success, but it's not to create extra work for them, it's to be hopefully supportive, and my hope is we could get more community suggestions, the more minds you get involved, because I think next year is going to be a very difficult year with literally $4 million rolling off of the ESSER funds and inflation in general.
Thank you, Ethan. Yes, duly noted. Yes, Ari.
I'm going to give you my honest reaction to the request. I think you have to have someone as the head of the ship, and being on the Board of Ed, that some of our responsibility is being able to trust our admin and know that our superintendent is doing what's best. I feel like this request is kind of a trying to not stay in your lane type of situation. We haven't had this in the past, and this district has been doing this for years, and it just feels a little invasive. And kind of stepping outside of our Board of Ed role and trying to kind of do their job for them, and that doesn't feel good to me.
So I don't have the knowledge base nor the ideas that they do. On the other hand, I just think we need to be more supportive, because we get the budget, we sort of ask questions, but we don't make that many changes. So it's basically, I just think the more eyes you have, more questions you ask.
I think it differs from year to year. I think this year in particular, there weren't a lot of changes, and we kind of looked at it as it was, but that's not the case for every year. There have been many years where the board sits and asks questions, and there are issues to kind of debate and not debate. And I guess for me, that I feel like that's the appropriate level of involvement for a Board of Ed member, as opposed to being a part of the process. My thought is, as a Board of Ed member, the budget is presented to me. I'm given a month's opportunity to review it, ask questions, have the public come and give public comment. There's part of me that feels like that's not staying in my lane. That's just I'm just giving you my honest response.
So, thank you, appreciate the suggestion and the feedback. And this is actually a great reminder of us in terms of the wonderful role that we have and certainly the difference between governance and management. So based on the suggested agenda item, we will have this discussion at another time. So, but thank you for bringing it up. And with that, we now will, any other future agenda items? And hearing none? All right. Comments from visitors? Anyone here care to make a comment? Seeing none. We do have an executive session. And so without objection, I move that we enter executive session for the purpose of strategy and negotiation with respect to claim number L003764232. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, we will enter executive session. I would like to invite the acting superintendent, corporation counsel, assistant corporation counsel, and attorney Tom Gerard to join us in an executive session. We shall return thereafter. Just one moment, teammates, just a moment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dallas Dodge Corporation Counsel. Attorney Gerard will not be able to join us this evening. I would suggest also inviting the Assistant Superintendent into the executive session as well.
Duly noted, thank you. And also asking for the Assistant Superintendent to join the executive session. Thank you. All right, we have returned from executive session, now seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ari. Meeting adjourned at 9:35.